Yes, sir.
A few minutes ago, you said that the fact that an atheist does not believe in God does not change the fact that God exists. Correct?
Exactly.
But a point I would bring up is that God exists to you because the way you perceive reality is that you believe in Him. An atheist is an atheist because the way he perceives reality, God does not exist. So for each individual person, their own reality of what they perceive around them is what is for them. So for you to say that God exists, even if an atheist thinks he doesn't, is purely your viewpoint, not his, and not his reality. On that same token, saying that God, as your concept of him, is real, and saying that, say, the Aztec gods were not real because they sacrificed thousands of people to them is a total fallacy. Because those people's gods were just as real to them as yours is to you. And even if their gods drove them to murder thousands of people, they saw that as right, and people willingly died and gave their own lives for their gods. So what you perceive as God is totally individual. So how can you say that God exists for an atheist when in actuality it doesn't?
Great question. If I believe that this man is a bad dream that I'm having right now, does that change the fact that he's sitting here?
Well, I don't think you can cross-reference someone who's obviously there to something you believe, which you've never actually perceived.
You're making a fundamental statement about reality. What I heard you say was, reality is something that we construct in our mind. So if in my mind I construct this gentleman is a bad dream I'm having right now, does that change the fact that he's sitting here?
Well, obviously not.
All right, then please be very cautious when you think. Reality is simply something I create in my mind. I don't agree with that.
Why?
Because I think that I can misconstrue reality. I think I can make mistakes. And if I think he's just a bad dream I'm having, I am sadly mistaken. Or if I think the earth is flat and not round, I am sadly mistaken. Or if I think that up is down or down is up, I'm sadly mistaken.
Right, but it's still all perception because the atheist is still going to perceive that God is not there, even if you think he is. So how does that prove your point by making that example?
Well, let's say that the doctor tells me that I have cancer, and I look back the doctor in the face and say, no, that's your perception. I know that I don't have cancer. That doesn't change the fact that in reality I do have cancer. Similarly, just because I say God exists, doesn't mean God exists. Just because I say God doesn't exist, doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. In other words, God's existence does not depend upon my perspective, and his existence does not depend upon my perspective either. He exists separate from my perspective, and if God exists separate from my perspective. Which means the challenge for me is to find out, is he really sitting there or not? Similarly, the challenge for me is to figure out, does God really exist or does God not exist? Right?
Right, but why have you figured out that he exists?
Okay, good. I'm standing here saying, the reason that I believe God exists is because the evidence of the order and the design of the cosmos clearly points to some type of intelligent mind. The evidence that life comes from life, life does not come from non-life, points to a living, intelligent mind existing. The evidence of moral absolutes convinces me that there's some type of creator who created and defined justice, love, compassion. There's more to reality than matter and energy.
Yeah, but your perception that life comes from not life, see...
No, life comes from life.
I'm sorry, well, correct. Your perception is that life comes from life and life does not come from not life. But that is based on your belief that God created the first life.
No, it's not based on that. Well, it has nothing to do with that. My belief that life comes from life has to do with figuring out where little babies come from, figuring out where little rabbits come from, figuring out how to get a baby colt if you want a baby colt. You bring a male and a female horse together. You don't bring two rocks together and get a baby horse out of that. My experience in this life is life comes from life. You never get a baby human being coming from non-life. Life comes from life. Plant life comes from plant life. It doesn't come from inanimate matter. Therefore, is it more plausible for me to believe in the beginning God, or is it more reasonable to believe in the beginning hydrogen? Because my experience tells me life comes from life, it's more reasonable, it's more plausible for me to believe in the beginning God, not in the beginning hydrogen. If follow that?
Well, I follow that, but I disagree with your example for the reason that several scientists conducted an experiment where inorganic matter in compounds, I don't remember the exact ones because I'm not an expert on it, were taken, and under pressure and heat and what have you, those compounds did form what would be the building blocks of life. And this happened very shortly. So non-life created life to begin with.
Oh no. Oh no, no. What happened was intelligent mind took some matter and energy and put it together in such a way that life comes about. Very good. That's exactly what I believe. Intelligent mind, God, brought about life.
Yeah, but that argument's the same as God existing, not existing, because that's what you believe and I believe the other.
No. You don't have life coming about by chance.
Why?
Because your example was some scientists in Chicago set up a situation in which they produced something that we think might have been life, and it's not clear at all either. That's a very questionable experiment. Highly questionable. Even if they pulled it off, the point is, intelligent mind organizes chemicals in such a way that life comes about. Yeah, that's what I believe. Intelligent mind, God, organizes things in such a way that life comes about. All I'm saying is take 10 pennies, number them 1 to 10, drop them in your right pocket, pull them out sequentially. I'm not going to stand around holding my breath waiting for you to do it. You're asking me to believe something even more incredible. You're asking me to believe that by chance, by accident, the human eye, central nervous system came together. I can't swallow that. Is that more reasonable? Or is it more reasonable to believe behind order and design, there's got to be an intelligent mind? Gosh, isn't it incredible the way the bricks fell together there? It's amazing. And the way the wood just fell into place, and the little glass up there in those windows. Man, I mean, it just came together. Rubbish. Order and design clearly point me to a builder, an architect, not an explosion in a brickyard.